every athlete, every person, every human being has an opportunity. Some opportunities don't come when you want them. But if you're prepared, good opportunities can happen. Always be ready, because you never know when your number is gonna get called.
I'm not coming back.
Emiy Apparel. Encourage me. I'm young.
Calvin T. Mann, leading Emiy, served over 20,000 youth through speaking, coaching, and mentoring. He has inspired us for years. Welcome to Emiy TV Podcast with your host, Calvin T. Mann, the Encourager.
Good afternoon. It is November 4th, 2024, the dawning of the day. Welcome to Put Your Family First podcast. Today is going to be an interesting day. We're going to get in a few conversations, and one in particular, we have a special guest. Brother Mission Smith is in the building, and before we get there, Dr. Heather Rue, how are you?
I'm awesome. I'm happy to be here today.
Awesome. Brother Dave?
Oh, well. I am happy to be here and blessed for another day. Ready to use it, too.
Awesome. Good. Mission, how you doing, brother?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Oh, yeah. We, this conversation is going to be surprising to a few people. Right? Because of the way, let me see, get that.
Yeah, there you go.
They keep coming back.
Yeah, it's not showing on the screen.
Oh, okay. So yeah. And so, with it being the 4th and everything, there are a few things we get out of the way. Yesterday was epic. Day before yesterday was epic. Dads and Donuts, the men. We had an interesting conversation all day. The food was off the charts. Everybody loved the food. Shout out to Crab House, Detroit, for always coming through. Good food. And the men and the stories. And I think Elder Jonathan Wynn did his thing.
Certainly did.
All right. Mm-hmm. And Gerald.
Yeah, Brother Edwards,
right? Just want to see unity.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He kept that simplified, right? In the building were a number of fathers. We had the discussion. We held, of course, I held the conversation. And in the conversation was a number, because I was talking to the kids. Monique, we talk to the kids. See, when you talk to the kids, the parents will listen better.
Oh, yeah.
Right? When you talk to the parents, the kids ain't paying attention, nor the kids, or the parents. So you got to talk to the kids in order for the parents to really listen in, because it automatically, let me listen to what this man is saying to my child. That kicks in. But what an interesting day. Was really happy to see James Tate was in the building. We had about 7 fatherhood organizations, leaders in the building. So it was something to build on. And again, good food, good people, laughter. I really took to the thing that Brother Drew was saying, that I tricked him. Mm-hmm. I ain't trick you. We just moved the We moved you up, baby. You came off of JV. You on varsity now. You went to the game.
Coming off the bench. You got skills. We want to see them.
You want to see it. And so it was an interesting day. So today, before I get into this conversation with Brother Mission, because I know Heather is going to try to sabotage. So is there anything you'd like to say before we get into this conversation?
Well, I just wanted to kind of frame our conversation today, as I like to do. We are talking about boy matters, but we're also crossing over into our advocates and authors. And Michigan's going to share quite a bit of how he works through both of those areas in multiple ways. So that's an exciting conversation to have. Mm-hmm. It's always exciting when you have an opportunity to look at this journey through the lens of men. As a woman, we have lots of girl time, girl circles, women movements, women summits. So we do this work every month. And when I have a chance to sit down and really hear the stories of men, it gives you a greater appreciation for them. And, it opens them up in a way that you can really connect and relate to them. And so their stories and their journey has real meaning. And I'm prayerful that those who are listening in today will lean into some of the stories, lean into some of the life lessons, lean into the conversation, and knowing that beneath all of it is our source. And when we talk about putting our family first, we mean your biological family, but also your spiritual family. And in our room right now is our spiritual family. We got our engineer, Monique. She's part of the spiritual work. We got Dave, who's a big part of the spiritual work in so many ways, on so many levels. And Calvin as well, who's been given a vision that we have been able to share and to just kind of keep moving the idea of putting your family first along this journey. And so I'm looking forward to having that conversation. I'm looking forward to that same energy being put forth in the changes that we're seeing taking place. Today is significant. Tomorrow's even more significant for our voices to be heard, that we choose choice over hate. And that really, for me, is the bottom line. Our families have to be mindful of, the choices that we have to make and have made up to tomorrow. So I just want to encourage those families and individuals, if you have not voted, please take your opportunity to vote. If you haven't voted before, if you've never voted, this is a prime time to do it. It is essential that your voice is heard. There is no room on the sidelines. So we need your vote, we need your voice, and we need to hold up and uplift our responsibility for being a part of this process, and the responsibility that has been given to not just us, but the shoulders and the footsteps that we have to follow, and those who have made those sacrifices to make sure that we have the right to choose, and we want to exercise that right, especially up till tomorrow. So that's kind of my thoughts for kicking this off, Calvin.
Well, I'm going to pivot a little bit here, right? So what I want you to do is I want you to give some highlights that you know about Mission, right? That you've gathered. If you can do that, then we'll get into a conversation, because Mission and I have exchanged a number of pieces of information, and you're going to be shocked to know a piece in here today that fits right into the work that we do. So
Right. So just one of the reasons why I invited him here.
Okay, do your thing, baby.
That's right. I'm taking the credit for this. One of the reasons that I invited, well, there's several reasons. The first, for me, is that our son had an opportunity to work with and study under Mission this summer in his program. And the confidence that he had coming out of it, out of the experience, and feeling connected. And so I want to say that I was a little bit of I'm a pushy mom when my mom roll. So I called him a couple hundred times. I called called him a couple hundred times about one of the films that they produced this summer. Like, when is it coming out? Can I get a copy? So I've been pushing him a lot about that. But in my pushing, being able to learn so much more about him as a father, as a husband, as a producer, director, as a writer, and some of the other roles that he has been blessed and has blessed us to know about him. I'm really looking forward to having the deeper conversations. Some things that I learned about him is about him being a husband of 10 years. And the support that he has from his wife. So knowing that even throughout his journey, he's had somebody there loving him through his journey and by his side as he took these steps. So that's the one thing that's really important to me. Again, about putting your family first. And as he gave her honor to talk about who she is and who she is in his life, and being that encouragement to him. So I really can't wait to hear more about that story, because I want to know where you met. I want the juicy details. Right. Some other things that I learned about him, something that we actually have in common that he may not know about, is I wrote a book around suicidal ideation and my own experience called Cardinal in Red Dress, because I have been there myself. So I had a mental health break around grief, and I didn't know how to handle it, and decided that this was my out. So I was taking myself out, which I actually did. But because of God and his mercy and his grace, he saw fit to bring me back here to do the work. I had already gone and expired. And so him bringing me back to do more of this work, that was another area in our conversation just today where I found another alignment. And when he saw Ra and they had an exchange, Ra was really excited to see him. So that was another, for me today, just the spark. You could see the spark between them when they had a conversation and just being able to reconnect. So I want to hear more about Mission, the author, Mission, the director and producer, award-winning director and producer and writer. So, and his role in the life of his son and encouraging and motivating his son, which again, we talk about Boy Matters. And so being a father of 4 and his impressions that he's leaving on his family and his legacy, the legacy that he's already laid, even where he is now, but moving forward. So those are just a couple of my highlights that I'm really looking forward to digging a little bit deeper in.
So good, and you took us there. No, really, and
that's good.
That's good, right? And so I want to get into, because of the work we do in raising awareness around suicide, right? It's an important piece to me. It's an important piece to our team and people. But suicide being what it is says more about society than it does about the individual, in my gracious opinion. We do so many things to hinder and harm, in particular males. Now, when we talk in Boys Matter, we say boys matter because the boy becomes a man, the man becomes a husband, the husband becomes a father. If you don't give a boy a fair start, he won't have a great finish. And these are things that oftentimes that we get away from. And the value is the most important thing. So with that being said, Mission, tell them exactly the position you were in when you came across your suicidal ideation.
So I was 18 years old. I left home at 17 and was starting college for the first time. And so with my father being absent, with me growing up, there was a lot of unanswered questions for me.
Come on.
There was a lot of identity issues for me. So being in this new environment with all these new people, I didn't know exactly who I was, right?
Yes, sir.
And so I started dealing with the stresses of adulthood, paying for college. Getting myself up in the morning was a stressor, right? But I also started to be exposed to different things like being an adult. So I would go to parties, you know. To give the background, my family has had some issues with alcoholism.
Okay.
Had some issues with drug addiction. Mm-hmm. And I fell into some of those things. And with that, not knowing who I was and dealing with the stresses of life, I felt like I couldn't do it on my own. And so I attempted to take my life, chamber loaded, safety off, trigger pulled, and God said, no, not now. I got something better for you. And in that, it was a very emotional situation, right, for me, because I thought it was the end, you know. I thought there was no reason to live. But now being 40, and I just turned 40 this year, I realized there was so much God had in store for me.
Right.
So much he had in store for me.
Right.
And, you know, that ties into the fact that now that I do have 4 children, as you mentioned, those were 4 lives that I needed to be impactful on. Not just those 4 lives because those are direct in my home, but tons of kids that I've talked to over the years. I've done a lot of social justice work. I've done a lot of anti-bullying work. I've been in boys' homes. I've been in schools. I've done I've done social justice concerts because I used to be actually in music. That's one thing a lot of people didn't know. I started actually doing hip hop at the age of 8 years old. I had a kid come to me at a Rise Detroit event. My wife was with me. And he said, you came to my school and you're the reason I graduated from high school. Didn't remember this kid from Adam. But he came to me and said, you impacted my life and now I'm in college.
Identity.
Yes, blessings.
So, I mean, for me, that moment of trying to take my life and God sparing my life, that was the lesson I needed to learn, that it ain't about me. It's about all the people he wants me to impact. So I'm thankful that God spared my life because now I do have 4 beautiful children. I do have a beautiful wife. I do have a very talented son who we are now co-podcast winners. That happened this year. God has done a lot, you know, for me. I have 3 degrees. I have several film awards, award-winning podcasts that I just said. But all those things, they're minute to the fact of the people I've impacted doing the work I do.
So, and kudos, right? Thank you for sharing, because that is the important piece. See, we can't do the work in silence. It was a conversation this morning, right? You can't get in a relationship and be quiet, right? It doesn't happen. Silence does not move the relationship. So silence around suicide is not going to change the dynamic, like suddenly it's just going to go away. So I wanted you to start there because it was important, because it fit what we talked about earlier today, and it goes into the important, most important piece, right? Was what year was it that you became a father?
So I became a father to my first beautiful daughter who's about to graduate from high school and has been accepted to 6 colleges. Let's go. I was 22 years old, right? Still in my college journey, had graduated once. By that time, on my way to the second level of that, and I was cooked in already. But when she was born, ironically enough, her mother had the baby shower on St. Patty's Day. She was here the next day. She's like, all right, I got the gifts, so it's time for me to come. But she has been like my little best friend, right? She's calling me right now. My little best friend, because she saw me grow up. She saw me become a man, right? And with her, I instilled a lot of me in her, right? As I was growing up, because I was growing up with her. But now that I see she's graduating from high school with honors, National Honor Society, all that good stuff, knows where she wants to go, that's because I instilled certain values, right? Because at 18, I was switching majors. I was like, which way I'm going to go? She knows where she's going to go. And that's because she's seen me cook up from when I didn't know really where I was going to be to me being established to where I'm going to be. So she's well put together.
Well, she was a decisive seed.
Yeah.
See, when you had already put something on your code, so here she is born.
Yeah.
After you've done those things.
Yeah.
So once you had the child, right?
Yeah.
There was a decisive seed.
Yeah.
So she's embedded in love, education, decisiveness, focus. These are things that she gathered on her inception, right? Because why? There's 3 to 2 in here. There's 3 fathers in here. When a man becomes a father, he becomes the coldest thing on earth, right?
Yeah.
So you're no longer a man, you're a father.
Yeah.
And that impacts, like you said, in all your work, everything. I love the fact that you acknowledge that you grew up. At me, I was scared. I was 23, right? I panicked. Hey, I can't have no kids out of wedlock. I panicked.
No, you know what? Ironically, I was the same way. And the crazy thing is, the first, and not to paint a bad picture, but this is the truth. First 5 years of her life, I was mainly the main parent. Right. She was with me most of the time. My auntie says today, I remember you bringing her over and she was just on your hip. and that comes from that my dad wasn't there. So what I said to myself is, ironically, my dad had me at 22. I had my first at 22. And my dad was never there. And that's a story in itself. But when she was born, I was like, I'm going to be the exact opposite of what I had to deal with. And so that motivated me to stay in her life the way she deserved. She didn't ask to be here. That was my decision. So that made me just really push forward in a way to be everything that I didn't want for me.
Yeah, and that's what we do. When you find that space in that journey, it's like, and Dave, you could tap in on this because you being a father and being in this position, and it's not to take nothing away from y'all. I told you we was going to have this conversation. I just wanted to make sure that there is some input, and I know you.
And of course, we're going to balance it out.
Yeah. So, but looking at it from the standpoint, like you said, from that standpoint, right? As a father, as an inventor, a creator, and someone who has been painting a vision for your family and your seed, right? I don't want us, because Dave, this is one of the things you talk about, what fathers don't know, what people don't know about their father, and that's a good segue to this point, because I'm clear in this DNA conversation, this what do they call it, whatever genics this is, right? I'm clear that even the worst of us as men who procreated wanted our seed to be better. So although I wasn't present, right? I wasn't in there when the child is conceived. I had already been thinking about how I could be better. Most men know that they're flawed. Mm-hmm. And we don't do things, or there's not enough out there, which is what I've been talking about this whole weekend, what I said on Fox 2. It's not going to change. You can look in the mirror, I'm telling you right now, until you invest in males, the boy, the man, the husband, and the father. the violence won't stop. So share that piece, Dave, about how in the Army where the guys would always say something negative about their fathers.
Yeah, one of the things in the groups that I would run, they would say they hate their father. And this was not limited to just blacks. It was across the board. And I would often say to them, "Why you hate your father?" And they would give the explanation such as absentee, abuse, yada, yada, yada. And I would say to them, first and foremost, your father couldn't give you what he didn't have. You can't do what you don't know. So, and in many cases, you have a hate based on a hurt, but you don't have a hate based on knowledge in a lot of situations. And even when you find a father who's abusive, neglectful, whatever, again, as you said earlier, they're flawed too. And no one helped them with those areas that they were weak in.
Come on now.
And because they don't have the knowledge and the information to work with, and the broader picture is the support. We don't really support men like that because we put on a pseudo image. Everybody wants to maintain that pseudo image that I'm in control, I know what I'm doing, I'm all that in a bag of chips. But when you get into the core, he says, tell generals this. On that side of the door, you're General so-and-so. On this side of the door, you Bob. So let's talk about you. Because who you are and what you do are two different things. But always going to come out is who you are and what you're doing. So if you're compromised person from inside, is going to be a compromised person on the outside. So a lot of the men would be frustrated. But one of the things I noticed, too, it was the element of trust, building trust with men so they would talk about real issue. Not what you want to give me the impression on the outside, but who you are on the inside. So I had to establish trust with these men, and then they began to talk. I can see a man shoot a fly's wing at 300 meters without hesitation, but I get him behind the door and he in the fetal position because a girl from his wife left him. And he didn't know what to do with those emotions. So it takes a lot for us to invest in men to show them who they really are from the inside out, not the outside in. And unfortunately, that doesn't happen very often when it comes down to men really building a bond of trust.
You said something that resonated with me very strongly. We can't do something we don't know, right? And I said my dad wasn't there, but about 28 years old, I found him on Facebook, right? And we went through a process of building, and I had to forgive him because he didn't know. Mm-hmm. So that made me say, what can I do for this relationship? Mm-hmm. And so now we talk, and now he knows his grandchildren. Mm-hmm. And all of that happened that created those identity issues in me. Mm-hmm. They were gone because I was able to forgive, because that forgiveness wasn't for him. It was for me.
That's right.
That healing was needed for me.
Yeah, and so as we are in this society as men, we see all the mask. We as a people, men and women, we got to come up out the mask. You know what I mean? Because the mask is deteriorating family. And the mask is destroying relationships unnecessary. Mm-hmm. And the mask is saying expectation is more important than value. Mm-hmm. And expectation is not a way to raise a family or have children. You cannot. Now, I might have an expectation that my child, because I believe that my oldest son was cold when it comes to the gospel hip hop. Mm-hmm. That's not what he really wanted to do. Me, I had an expectation that that's what your ass is gonna do, right? You know what I mean? But in the process, that's not what he was gonna do. Him finding or discovering his way, sometimes it's hard for us as parents. But the one thing that I can say, right, the whole time in watching, you know, and Tone say this all the time, he's like, man, you show more patience with kids than anybody. He's got to go through that. And as a parent, if I didn't know or had my own experience of understanding of all those flaws that I had, right? I done called him Bubs a bunch of times, right? Because I know who that guy is.
Yeah.
Right? And so as fathers, the missing ingredients in the process, you know, this was good to start this conversation here, because now we can get into all the fun things and things that you do. But I wanted to set the tone on the importance of who you are. So you're not just missions man. Mm-hmm. You're a father.
No, absolutely.
Right? And then that's what we miss in valuing men. You want a husband? Value him as a father, and watch how far that gets you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, value is very important. Mm-hmm. And I say this all the time. I was saying this before we got to really talking earlier. I'm really nothing without the support system of my wife. Mm-hmm. I'm going to tell you this, because there's a lot of times you question what you're doing. Mm-hmm. You might not question it out loud. You question it out loud to her because you're like, yo, what do you think about this? Because I'm not quite sure. And if you got that right support system, you're going to do it. Yeah. And 1,000 times over, I'd been like, I'm not sure. And she'd be like, yes, you are. Go do it.
That brings us to the flyer, Monique. Share the flyer, right? That we're going to have this very conversation on, what is it, November 16th?
Saturday, November 16th.
At Northwest Activity Center, right? With women. And I'm going to have this conversation with them about the very thing the young man just described, the co-pilot. Mm-hmm. Mm. Right? Yeah.
Co-pilot or passenger, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we're going to have that discussion because a lot of women put themselves in, as I said earlier today, a lot of women come into a relationship with the parachute already on. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. She has no intentions of getting in that co-pilot seat.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that a very profound minister here in Detroit, and I started with him out of just 30 members, now it's thousands of them. And he said, I could not have achieved what I accomplished without my wife. I saw many ministers fall, but my wife was there. And I was just telling Calvin and Heather yesterday, I love to look at a wife being honored of a husband. I just love it. And I can see it in their eye. You know, I mean, all relationships got what they got because sometimes you have an argument with yourself. Like, nobody here but me. Your own relationship. But when you have that bond, that connection that you can turn around and say, what do you think of this? And they give you the feedback that enhances your ability to go forward, it's a beautiful thing. And I think many people miss that. And with all due respect to our ladies, they miss out on that beauty of a relationship when you can connect with one another and walk in that harmony as one. Mm. You know,
it's a beautiful thing, but it's a process.
Absolutely.
It's most definitely a process. And then there it is, the flyer, building strong, fulfilling relationships. Right there. You see, and we're going to talk about the co-pilot and passengers, right? Because it's really, and we can get in depth in it, but it's really essential to the vision. If you in that passenger seat with the backpack on, I'm always looking over my shoulder. Mm-hmm. But if you're in that seat, and it's just me and you in that co-pilot, and this boy is going down, and you are just as calm with me, you not panicking, you just as calm, and we pull this boy back up. When you look behind you, the passenger already jumped.
No, absolutely. But you know, when you say co-pilot, when you're flying a plane, that pilot can get up and go to the bathroom because that co-pilot
is right there. Handle business.
But that passenger, we all gone.
That's right.
So if I gotta go and you already gone,
and that's what that's the thing that's in. And then there are a lot of us men that don't know how to handle women who are co-pilots. We only know how to deal with the passenger. Bring them some coffee.
Yeah.
Bring them a drink.
Yeah.
Talk to them as you're walking down the aisle. But you don't know how to position them to be a co-pilot. So we're going to get into that. It's going to be very interesting.
That's a very interesting. It also brought a story in my brain. I just got to tell this real quick. So when my wife and I we were dating, a young lady approached me and asked me, "Do you have a lighter?" And my wife was like, "He don't smoke." And the reason that's funny to me is because that's a co-pilot, right? She like, "I'm shutting that down. Why are we having this conversation? You know, keep it moving." But what I realized that was the moment I fell in love with her, because I was like, see how she took care of that situation? I didn't have to deal with it and say, I ain't had to do nothing. She just kind of took care of it. It's jokingly in the manner that I think about it now, but in the moment, I was like, yeah, that's a keeper right there. Yeah. That's the keeper right there, you know?
Yeah, because she know.
Yeah, she's like...
She know what that wolf look like. She gets to be the tip-top burglar too, right? You know what I mean? So it's funny that we even, you know, and that's really funny. Relationships to the culture right now, the relationships are very, very important. So let's talk about I know you wanted to...
I wanted to start off with his name. Who named you? Where'd your name come from, Michelle?
All right, so as I said, I used to be a hip-hop artist. And when I first started, my first name was Caliber, right? Because I was just wanted to be cool. And I thought about guns, knives, all that good stuff. You know, But my sister and I, Neek Love Rose, very established hip-hop artist right now, we were touring the city doing our own shows. And she was like, we're about to do this new show. And I said, you know what? I need to change my name. But I needed to match my attitude towards what we're doing. And I was like, yo, I'm always on a mission to make it the best thing. So mission, that's it. That's what we're going to, because I'm on a mission. And my life is going to be that exact thing. I'm on a mission. Now, the spelling is interesting because I'm half Italian. And my dad's last name is spelled Zizzo. So instead of the S's, as a tribute to that part of me, even though I hadn't talked to him yet, because this was younger in my life, that's why I decided to spell it that way. As a tribute to me, because I feel like even if I didn't know that part of me, it's a part of me. And I've always said, I'll get to know that part of me. So I'm always intentional. I do stuff before it even matters to other people. It matters to me.
So what's your real name, brother?
So for those in the industry that know me and cooked up with me for a long time, my actual first name is Michael. And when I first started in the industry, I used to say Michael Mission Smith. But there came a point in time where I said, no, we're gonna kick the Michael off. And that tells a story too, because my dad's name is Michael. So not only did I have a moment of where I wanted to honor him, there was a moment where I was like, I don't want to even be connected because of our history. So I was like, no, we're just gonna roll with mission. But it stuck because everybody who heard the name, just like when you heard the name, you said, oh, that's a dope name. So everybody just like, that's better. Let's just roll with that.
So underneath you, the Archangel.
I was thinking the same thing. I was thinking the exact same thing in my head. And I said, well, I ain't going to say that.
No, seriously, though, it has stuck. And in the industry and all the stuff I've done, when they hear mission, that's more identifiable. Right, we know who that is.
That's cool.
Understood. So talk a little bit about your journey starting at 8 in hip-hop.
Okay. So I had a next-door neighbor who had all this equipment, recording equipment, and him being the type of guy that wanted to help the guys in the neighborhood, the younger guys, we would go and record our little hip hop songs in his basement on a tape record. It was on tape back then,
reel to reel,
right? And then he started getting me shows, and I performed at Hart Plaza and. Down where all the graffiti is, I performed down there at a young age, and I had the hip hop bug. It just from there I was like, I'm gonna do music. So I thought, right? I got the microphone on my arm still as a tattoo, but I went and kept doing the music thing. But what's crazy, the second thing that came in my life that I fell in love with was photography. So at 16, I started my first photography business. Went into a mall, asked the jewelry guy, could I take pictures of his jewelry? He was my first paying client. I knew I was going to be in business for myself from that point on. And then 18, when I was in college, I started my first record label. So I always knew I was going to do something for myself because I wanted to define who I was. It was always that identity thing. I needed to define who I am. And so, so that's how the music, and it progressed. But once I fell in love with photography and film, that was it for me. I knew that's where I was going to end up being.
So now, can you help us bridge the connection between you and Houston?
Oh, yes. So,
and tell the people who Houston
Genius, as the world knows him now, thanks to people like Charlie Langton and different organizations that just recognize that name. My son and I have a love for wrestling. And he's had a love for wrestling since he was a baby. He actually used to watch it and laugh when guys used to get beat up. And so he told that story on Fox 2 too. But he loves what I love. But since he was like 3, he told me he was going to be a content creator. He knew that's what he, like you said, plant that seed. He knows now what he wants to be for the rest of his life. And so, okay, that's what you want to do. Dad's going to support it. Let's start your YouTube. And then now to tell the story, 2020, I was about 400 pounds. A lot of people remember me being this big. I became very ill. I was born, I'll say about 4 years old, I was diagnosed with epilepsy. But when I became 400 pounds, I was diagnosed with diabetes type 2. That's from them late night sets, eating unhealthy, really not paying attention. And then I contracted COVID. And my son saw me go. He saw me pass away. And so I went to the hospital and I FaceTimed him and I made a promise to him. When I get better, we're going to do amazing things. And so that was my whole mission, to get better. And as I get better, we are doing amazing things. We have a podcast, the Family Faction Wrestling Podcast. Where he has his YouTube. He's creating his own stories. He is everything I wanted to be at his age.
Blessing.
And I think from what I'm instilling in him, he gonna be the type of dad he gonna be. I'm gonna be like, man, you blew me out the water with stuff I know he's going to be because what I've instilled in him.
Mm-hmm. So talk to us a little bit more about. So you really were a prodigy, starting at age 8, moving into a career in music. Mm-hmm. And so, as your son, how old is your son?
He's 8 now.
He's 8, and so we talk about imprinting. What's imprinted on your DNA. Mm-hmm. And I know Calvin talked a little bit about that earlier. So as the imprint of you taking that type of journey at 8, and Houston now also taking his journey at 8, the progression of some of the things that you were facing in your life leading up to your benchmarks, the same for him. So now he has an opportunity to, because of you and because of your relationship, he has the opportunity to navigate to and through some of the circumstances that you may have faced, because the one of the challenges that you mentioned was that your father wasn't there, but you as a father are there for him.
Yeah.
So he can navigate through some of the challenges, even though he may be following the synergistic blueprint of you.
Yeah, I think though for him, he still deals with the world. He's a very loving person. He's the type that if we're riding in the car, he will say, "We got any money in the car? Because I want to give it to him." Every November, he collects toys that he has that he doesn't play with and said, "I need to give that to children who don't have toys." And this is his own heart.
He a humanitarian, right?
Yeah, no, he says it all the time. I'm going to be a millionaire, and I'm going to give millions to people who don't have it.
So talk about his short film. One of the ones you talked about, bullying.
Oh, so it's called Misunderstood. He came to me and said, I'm getting bullied at school, which is a hard thing for kids, right? Because kids can be brutal. Mm-hmm. He came home very emotional about how, because he is doing all these things, it's difficult for kids to handle that he's getting all this exposure. So they want to pick on him for the things that he's doing great, because they don't understand it. Why are you on TV? Why are you doing these things? And so he comes home and he's like, nobody wants to be my friend. Nobody wants to play with me. People are bullying me. But I want to tell a story about that. So Misunderstood is a story about being bullied. In this short, though, he asks the bully, why are you bullying me? And when that person gives, well, I don't get treated right at home, so that's why I come. He said, what I want in that story is for me to say, well, I'll be your friend. You can lean on me, and now we'll both be comforted. And so that's the short film we put together, which is an award-winning film. It's been selected in film festivals, and I think it's a great message because we all need someone to lean on. And sometimes it can't be somebody younger than you. Mm-hmm. A lot of people think when you're younger, you don't have as much knowledge. But that's not the case. It's what you're exposed to that gives you knowledge. Knowledge is taught, right, and acquired. If you read books, you'll know more. If you have more conversation, you'll know more. If I sat in a room and I was quiet, maybe I observed, but if I didn't connect with you, Brother Calvin, and if I didn't connect with these people, then I'm not going to know anything about this room. We know more because we have discussion.
And I would like for you to kind of segue, that's a great segue actually, into your book. Talk a little bit about the book.
So, In the Mind of a Writer is a book I started when I was 12 years old. And my mother was murdered when I was at the age of 12. And unsolved murder, never figured it out. And so I started writing, but I wrote, the very first thing I wrote was my life. At 12 years old was the very first line, and then I wrote the poem. And then as years went on, I just kept writing. This was my way of getting it out. I'm going to write. And at 30, I was like, it's time for people to read all of this. And so I had the book published.
Wow.
I wanted to inject this. Mm-hmm. As you're sitting here and see my brother here, you don't know I'm a can of paint, right? You look at me, looks normal, life is good. But as he started telling that story and his challenges and his highs and lows, now he could have took another route and blamed the world for everything. No one would think that, his mother was murdered. But he didn't take that route. He took a route to develop himself. And what I've learned with people is that we need that knowledge of light to pull us out of the darkness of ignorance. Mm-hmm. See, so many people walking around here uninformed. And as you said, knowledge is shared. And as you share knowledge and you begin to grow in knowledge, you begin to get understanding. The Bible tells us in all things get understanding. And we get the understanding, you get the clarity. And from the clarity, you pull the wisdom. From 12 to present day, you have this wisdom to share to the world based on your story. And that's the thing I tell people. You got to get to know people's story. Because when you know their story, your judgment changes. It moves from being critical to understanding.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for that.
It's ultimately important. It's what podcasting is all about. It's what writing is all about. It's what vision is all about. If you don't tell the story or you don't listen, it was like when I was leaving Fox 2 and Amy Lane was like, if you know any turnaround stories, I said, I haven't even told my story. Mm-hmm. She was like, really? I was like, yeah, I haven't even told my story. Right? Because you feel a sense of work, and it's like I saw where Killer Mike was saying how Charleston White used to show up with his shirts and try to speak and talk to the culture, and nobody valued him. And then when he started talking negative and turning to the people, all of a sudden everybody started listening to him. And for that position, that explains the state of the culture being ignorant.
That's right.
But that you're more acceptable for me to give you ignorance than you are actual good news stories for you to benefit from. But as soon as somebody package it different, and then now you're on what's the name, is who the same thing he was talking about what his son was going through. Basically, the kids are like, who do you think you are? That starts in the home. See, I talked about that this morning. There was like a kid lives on 8 Mile in Greenfield, but he's got to go to Detroit Central, right? On Linwood. The kid has to travel across to go to Central. When he gets to Central, and they find out where he's from, if he's smart, it's even worse. Now, if he falls in line and joins all the shenanigans, it's cool. So your percentages for goodness is already damaged just because I have to go through a metal detector. And if I'm smart, everyone around me tells me I'm dumb. Who do you think you are? You think you're better than us, so and so and so and so. So this process creates more damage. So then you take that and you move that damage into a relationship. And now I'm in high school. I've had to fight my whole time while going to school, right? I have not learned nothing in that distance. If I didn't have proper upbringing and protection and guidance, this is what we see today. When they say, what's wrong with these kids? Well, what's wrong with the kids is what's wrong with the parents.
That's
right? We're not making love. We're making lust. We're making whorism. We're making players. We're making, right, these things that does not contribute to the health of the culture. And that's where we have to get better at. Mission, tell us where they can reach you at, brother.
So that's Mission Smith on all social media platforms. That's MIZZION Smith. You can find me there. And I'm also going to mention the Family Faction Wrestling Podcast, because Houston is a big part of who I am today.
But as a matter of fact, name your other kids as well.
So London, Brooklyn, Houston, and Arlington. And because they're locations, they're literally my world.
Blessings.
That's nice.
That is nice.
Heather, tell us where they can reach you at.
You can reach me at yourinspiredjourney.com. That's www.yourinspiredjourney.com. Or you can call me direct. Please don't direct message me. Call me at 313-759-7855.
Dave?
You can reach me at David FMAM Patterson on Facebook, or you can reach me at DROME7, that's DEROME7 at yahoo.com. That's good for now.
If you can put up the flyer again.
Oh, yes, I sure can.
So, November 16th, ladies.
Connecting with your man.
We're going to give you some tools. I'm not new to this. I'm true to this. I've helped women get married long before I became encourage me, I'm young. Right? So we're going to have that conversation. Connecting with your man. How do you connect with your man, ladies? You should be in the room for Jewels. Do not come in there with all that controversial stuff. Well, he this, he that. I want you to come to learn, because that's important that you come to learn. Get you some new information to interact, because everybody is giving you the same information already. So you already know, men ain't nothing, right? So we gonna show you where men are something, right? And then this was good. I was glad to have you, Mission, and Heather and Dave, the one thing I want to make clear that we have to make clear. Men do have visions. And women do have visions themselves. Sometimes the man has to be the co-pilot to a vision. Mm-hmm. Can you handle that when you're chauvinistic? Right? Or are you there to build? Right? How can you handle that position? In October, they had the 28th Stay-at-Home Dad Convention. And in those fathers, there are a number of those fathers who are millionaires and they stay at home. They found that when fathers stay at home with the children are more successful than when the mothers stay at home with the children. The children are more disciplined. It's a fact. It's not a, right? Stephen Baskerville did research and monitored daycares and saw the difference when the father and the child, right? So meeting them halfway, as Dr. Heather Rue would say, meeting you halfway is just the beginning. We talk about things in relationships, and just like it comes to a vision, you heard the young man say he would not have nothing if not for his wife, right? She answered some things that allowed him to focus on some things, the contributions. So it's the same for me. It's always been that way, right? And it's the same for her. It's important that she becomes who she chooses to become, and what God has made her to become is important for her to get there and to be challenged to get there. Sometimes we don't challenge each other. You can handle this. Sometimes it's a motivational talk. Sometimes these are the things that you go through in a healthy relationship. Everything ain't about it's just me. This is just me. It's all about me. This is me. Well, that's not the case, right? It's we. We gonna speak some French around here, right? Because it's important to understand that I'm not Dr. Calvin Mann without Dr. Heather Rue, right? And in fact, a quick story as we signing off. I hadn't received an award in all the years of work that I have done. In 2015, the question was asked, had I ever received an award? And I said no. Now, this is 2015. What's that, 9 years ago now? Right? So the kids wasn't getting Respect Day through to the teachers. We decided to hold Respect Day at DSA. We put it down, right? So that day I received the Detroit Award, right?
Spirit of Detroit. The
Spirit of Detroit Award. And for my 30 years, Alicia Bell gave me the award Calvin T. Mann Day in Wayne County. But I had never, up until that point, received anything. A lot of people think I'm just brand new, just been on the scene. That's just, man, where you come from, man. We didn't know you. Oh, man, people tell you quick, man. I remember God been painting this picture since 1992. Mm-hmm. You have to have patience with a man and a woman who has a vision, because you're going to go through some things to get to where you got to go. With that being said, my name is Calvin, Dr. Calvin T. Mann. I'm the president and founder of Encourage Me, I'm Young. You have just been enjoying yourself with Put Your Family First podcast. God bless you and encourage me. I'm young. Peace.